I'm Cory Kerr. This is IlluTalk, AI to AE, where we talk about how to take what you know about Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop and turn it into how to make things move in Adobe After Effects. So coming from the idea of design and illustration rather from the world of video and making things move in animation. So today we're actually going to talk about how to keyframe expressions. And so we're going to go in and we are going to set variables inside of expressions. If that sounds like it's crazy talk, it's actually not as hard as you would think. So let's do the intro and then we'll jump in.
This is IlluTalk.
All right, so there's our intro. We are here. So we're going to put variables inside of expressions. So first you need to kind of understand basic math. What is a variable, right? So let's just jump over here and we'll just look at Photoshop, right? And so we'll just use this as a chalkboard, right? And so everybody knows how to do math like this. If you do A plus B equals C, and somebody asks, what is C? I don't know. We don't have enough information, right? We need to know what A and B is, okay? Or at least two of these three. And so if I say A equals 2 and B equals 3, right? We can figure out C because you just plug 2 into here and plug 3 into here, and then C is 5, right? So we know that, right? But what if we change, what if we come in here and we just kind of erase 3 here and we change it to be 6, right? All of a sudden B doesn't equal 3, it equals 6, and so now 2 plus 6 equals 8, right? So now C equals 8. That is called a variable. Now, what if we did this, right? What if we had a timeline here? Oh, let's just do this. So we've got a timeline, okay? And down here on this timeline, we have A and we have B, right? And so we're going to say C equals, okay? And then at 1 second, we say that A equals 1 and B equals 1, right? And so at 1 second, we can say that C equals 2, right? So that's easy, right? But if as we move along this timeline over here, okay, we say that A equals 3 and B equals 10, okay, and this is maybe at 5 seconds, okay, then we can say that at 5 seconds, C equals 13, right? And that is how you can animate expressions over time. So let me jump over to After Effects and we'll take what we just learned about kind of animation and we'll jump that in, okay? So I know that this is super exciting that I've already got chalkboard math out, so how could I get more exciting than that? All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to take this little object, okay, and I'm going to put a simple wiggle expression on it, okay? And so a wiggle expression, what it does is it randomizes things, right? So I can come in here and I can rotate this, okay? So I can rotate this guy, right? And I can keyframe that rotation, and I can say, you know, there be there, but there be there, there be there, right? And each time I move that, it'll keyframe. And I play that through, okay? And it plays through those keyframes, okay? So, but if I don't want to keyframe it, if I want it to be random, then I can do this. I can go Alt, click. I need to turn on my key pose here. Key pose. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to Alt click, and that'll give me my expressions, right? So my expressions, I'm going to click on this little circle with a triangle in it and go down to Property, and I'm going to go to Wiggle, okay? Now there's a bunch of stuff in here in Wiggle that we don't need to worry about, okay? So I actually find it easier to just delete everything except frequency and amplitude, okay? And so frequency is the number of times per second that this random number is generated, okay? And so we can say, right now, we're going to say 1, okay? So 1 time per second. Amplitude is the amount of range that you have. And so when you're dealing with rotation, that's going to be 0 to 360. That's the range that you've got. Or it's going to be degrees around a circle. Okay? And so if I say 30 degrees, okay, then without any keyframes, okay, it's going to waggle back and forth between, 30 degrees. Okay? Fairly slowly because it's once per second. If I want to speed that up, I can say let's do 10 times a second. Okay? And then all of a sudden it goes much faster, right? And if I want to go less here, I can go, let's just have it be 3 degrees, okay? And now it's just going to rotate 3 degrees, but still go really fast. And so you can see how if I could change these, I can do that. But I can't add keyframes to this. This is where it gets a little tricky, okay? So remember back over here that these variables, A and B or whatever, what if we called these X and Y, and we called the equation, okay, whatever rotation was, okay? And so this is what we're actually going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into After Effects, and I'm going to create a new, thing, and this new thing is going to be called a null object. Now, if you don't know what a null object is, it's a nothing, right? It kind of doesn't exist. It doesn't really like show up or render anywhere, but it can have properties. And because it can have properties, it becomes really valuable to us. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit P for position, okay? And under position, I'm going to right click and I'm going to separate dimensions, okay? And I now have, and I'll show you why I did that. Before I did that, I have two numbers here. I've got my X and my Y. Now the problem is I want to use these as variables, but I can't put two numbers in a single number spot. So I need to put a single number in a single number spot. And to be less confusing here, I'm going to change this from 10, and I'm going to say that this is going to be X, and I'm going to say that this is going to be Y, okay? And it's going to give me an error because it's like, that doesn't make any sense, right? So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go separate dimensions. Okay, so I've separated the dimensions. So now I have on each one of these lines a single number. So here's where it gets cool. You have a pick whip, okay? An expression pick whip will insert a reference to target, which basically means if you select something, okay, or you have your cursor somewhere and you pick whip something, then it is going to take that thing and write all the code for you. I don't remember any of this code, and I don't need to because I can do this. I'm going to select X here. Okay, so I select X, and then I'm going to grab this pick whip, not this pick whip, but I'm going to grab the expression pick whip, okay? And then I'm going to click and drag to the X position, which is a single number, and that's really important, of this null object. And then my code starts getting really confusing, and I don't even know what this is saying. Basically it's saying on inside of this composition, go find the layer called null1, and under transform, let's get the X position here and stick that value in. That's a big long line of code I'm never going to remember, and I don't need to, right? And under Y, I'm going to select Y, and I'm going to do the same thing. Pick whip, and it will replace whatever text you've just selected with whatever variable you pick whip to. So pick whip, and we go up here and we hit Y on the null object, and it says the same thing. Now, inside of this composition, go find the null object, find transform, and put Y position here. Now the cool thing is if I put this at 1 and I put this at 30, okay, you can see that it acts like it did before when we had 30 in there. But the cool thing is that because these can be keyframed, I can say I want this to get faster, and I change my X value, which is my frequency inside of my thing, and I'm going to say I want that to be like, 15, so it's going to get crazy, right? So now as I go, it gets faster, right? It starts at 0, and then right after that I can say I want you to be 0. And this is where it gets really cool because if that's 0, it stops. So it won't wiggle after that, right? Until I tell it to do that again. I can add another 0 keyframe. Then I can say, I want you to start slowly speeding up. So I want it to go to like 5, okay? And so I can increase or decrease the speed of this expression, okay? And I'll just kind of play that through so you can see it. So it freaks out. Okay, let's see what happens over here. Over here, it does nothing until it hits 0 again, and then it starts wiggling around, right? And it's doing that because I'm keyframing it. Now, I can also make it, I can control the other side of this with Y, and I can say, you know what? Let's go from 30 down to 2, okay? And so I'm going to go from 30. Now, this is a Y position. It's just a number at this point, okay? And so I'm actually physically moving around the null object, which doesn't matter because all this is at this current time indicator, right? Our playhead right here, it's just spitting out 8.1 and 2. Or if I scrub a little bit, now it's spitting out 10.4 and 2. Okay, or if I scrub this way, then it's spitting out 3.8 and 19. Wherever this playhead is, it generates a single number for X and a single number for Y based on the keyframes I have, and it plugs those in to the wiggle expression so that I can go like this, and you see now it's just like vibrating like crazy, right? And then I can say, yeah, vibrate like crazy for a little bit, okay? And then what I want you to do is I want you to start making ridiculously huge sweeping movements. So let's just go like 270, right? And we'll hit return, so that creates a keyframe. And then, so now it's going to vibrate a little bit, and then it's going to start swinging around. See how it just swings around? Okay, and I can say, whoa, that's way too fast. So I can go back to frequency, and I can say, give me the frequency here, and just get all this stuff out of there. Okay, and I'm just going to take my frequency down to 1. Okay, and so it'll go vibrate a lot, and then start swinging around, right? And so you can control either of those things. This will work with any expression. So any expression that you want to do, you can generate variables that will feed into those things. Wiggle expression is just one of my favorite expressions. And you can just come in and you can just, we'll just do it one more time, okay? You can just go wiggle, open and close parentheses. The first number that you do, which I like to call X, is going to be your frequency, the number of times it rotates through the random number generator in a second. And the second one is amplitude, the range at which it does, which I like to call Y, just because I link them to a null object X and Y, okay? Then I can just come in here like this, and I select my X. I grab my pick whip. I click and drag it to the X. And then I select my Y, grab my expression pick whip the Y, okay? And then we have keyframing inside of expressions, which means that you can have expressions start and stop, or speed up or slow down, or whatever variables that you can control inside of those expressions, you can keyframe those variables. So that is that, which I find super cool. And if you want to check out more of this jazz, then you can look at my playlist AI to AE, and make sure to like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. You can always go to my website, corykerr.com, to see some of the fun things that I do. And here's some animations that are flying around on the screen. We'll catch you guys later. I'm out.